Stellar Blade is back. But this time, we're not just looking at a new sequel. Because with Blood Rain, announced at Summer Game Fest, Shift Up is preparing to take the series in an unexpected direction. A new main character, a completely different city atmosphere, a darker story, and a world that looks much bigger than the first game. The details shared so far show that Blood Rain could be a very ambitious step toward expanding the Stellar Blade universe. So now, let's take a look at everything we know so far, from the game's announcement to the hidden details in the trailer. First, let's start with the most important point. Blood Rain has officially been announced, so this is no longer a project floating around at the rumor level. Shift Up confirmed that the new game is in development and also shared the first teaser footage. However, the interesting thing is that the game was not announced directly under the name Stellar Blade 2. Instead, the choice of the title Blood Rain suggests that the developers are preparing a different story and a different approach. The detail that caught the most attention from people who played the first game was the new main character. Because this time, instead of Eve, there is a new character named Evie at the center. This decision surprised many players. After all, Eve was the most important face of the first game and had become the symbol of the series. So naturally, moving to a new character brought many questions with it. But honestly, there may be logical reasons behind this decision, because one of the most effective ways to expand a universe is to show the same world through the eyes of different characters. If Shift Up had continued only through Eve, it could have been much harder to explore the other sides of this universe. With Evie, we may get to see different regions, different people, and different conflicts within this world. For now, what we know about Evie is quite limited, but based on what we saw in the trailer, her fighting style is clearly different from Eve's. She moves more aggressively, focuses more on close combat, and looks much harsher in physical confrontations. This means we may see serious changes on the gameplay side. One of the most striking aspects of Blood Rain is the change in atmosphere. In the first game, we saw wide deserts, abandoned regions, and areas reflecting the collapse of humanity. This time, we are looking at a massive city filled with neon lights. Honestly, the visuals in the trailer gave me a much stronger cyberpunk feeling than the first game, and I think this change could be one of the game's biggest advantages. Because the world of the first game was interesting, but some areas could feel a little too empty at times. A large city environment, on the other hand, will offer the developers many more opportunities, both in terms of exploration and storytelling. Another big question is Eve's role in the story. For now, there has been no statement saying that Eve has been completely removed from the game. On the contrary, it has been confirmed that Blood Rain takes place after the events of the first game, so it seems very possible that Eve will have an important role in the story. The thing I'm curious about is the connection between Eve and Evie. Even the similarity between their names is interesting on its own. This could be a complete coincidence, but honestly, I think it is an intentional choice. Shift Up will probably create an important connection between the two characters, and one of the story's biggest surprises may come from that. When we look at the name of the game, we also see some interesting details. Blood Rain is a very dark and harsh title. This may suggest that the tone of the story will be heavier than the first game. Some of the creature designs we saw in the trailer and the chaotic atmosphere of the city also support this. What awaits us on the enemy side remains largely a mystery for now. We don't know whether the Natiba threat from the first game has been completely eliminated. However, it looks like this time, we may have to fight not only creatures, but also humans and different organizations. I think the most important element in the game's story will be humanity. In the first game, we mostly saw a struggle for survival. Blood Rain, on the other hand, may show how humanity is reshaping itself, how new power balances are forming, and how technology is changing the world. There are also big expectations on the gameplay side. Stellar Blade's combat system was already one of the most praised parts of the first game. Especially the timing-based defenses, combos, and boss fights were highly appreciated by players. So Shift Up is expected to further improve one of its strongest areas. Even the short clips in the trailer suggest that the combat will be faster and harsher. Especially the close combat animations and character movements point to a more aggressive structure compared to the first game. If this feeling is reflected in the gameplay as well, we may see some very impressive battle scenes. On the technical side, expectations have naturally risen as well. The first Stellar Blade stood out with its visual quality. Character models, animations, and environmental designs received positive comments from many players. Blood Rain is expected to raise the bar even higher by making greater use of next-generation hardware. Also, the fact that Shift Up is publishing the game itself this time is a very important development, because this could give the studio more freedom. Less publisher pressure may help the developers apply their own vision more comfortably. Of course, there are still many unanswered questions right now. The game's exact release date has not been announced. The platforms have not been finalized. The major threat at the center of the story is unknown. It is not clear how important Eve will be, so a large part of the information we currently have is still limited. Even so, I think there are enough reasons to be excited about BloodRayne, because even though the first game was a new IP, it was quite successful. Shift Up seems to have chosen to expand the universe instead of simply trying to repeat that success. Honestly, the thing I'm most curious about is how bold BloodRayne will be on the story side. Because choosing a new character, a new city, a new atmosphere, and a darker tone is a serious risk. But sometimes big successes come exactly from risks like this. When we look at the bigger picture we have right now, we can say this. Stellar Blade. BloodRayne does not look like just a new sequel. It promises a bigger world, a darker story, a new hero, and a much more ambitious future. If Shift Up uses this potential correctly, BloodRayne could become not only one of the most important games in the Stellar Blade series, but also one of the most striking action games of the coming years. Honestly, the thing I feel most conflicted about right now is the new main character. Because I really liked Eve's design in the first Stellar Blade, and I thought she had become the face of the series. So, when Evie was first shown, she didn't create a huge sense of excitement for me. In fact, to be honest, I find Eve's look more successful. Of course, a character's appearance is not what determines the quality of a game. At the end of the day, what really matters is how strong the gameplay, story, and character writing are. But even so, I still don't fully understand why they decided to change the main character. On the other hand, when I look around online, I can see that I'm not alone on this. Especially on Reddit and various forums. There are many players who don't really like Evie's design or are questioning why Eve seems to be taking a back seat. However, I think this reaction is a little early right now, because we still have very limited information about the character. Also, there is a strong possibility that Shift Up will offer different outfits, different hairstyles, and various customization options in this game. In fact, just like in the first game, we may even see new costumes over time, and maybe even different playable characters through DLC. For me, the most important thing is not how the character looks, but what the game actually offers. If Shift Up can take the already successful combat system from the first game even further and also deliver a more immersive and powerful story, most of today's debates about character design will probably fade away over time. Because at the end of the day, what players remember is not a character's hairstyle, but the experience they had with that character. That is exactly what I'm hoping for. Gameplay that builds on the first game and a much more impressive story. If they can achieve that, I think BloodRayne could become a very successful sequel. For now, that's what we know about Stellar Blade, BloodRayne. But it looks like much more detail, new trailers, and new information will be revealed in the coming months. So, what do you think about the new main character Evie? What kind of role do you think Eve will play in the story? And do you think BloodRayne can become a bigger and more successful game than the first Stellar Blade? Make sure to share your thoughts in the comments. If you want to see more gaming news, leaks, rumors, theories, and detailed analysis videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.